Microsoft didn't win the AI war by outsmarting the competition. They won by quietly buying the keys to intelligence itself, while we were all looking elsewhere. And here's the part that should unsettle you. Your future now runs through a company you never voted for, never questioned, and never saw coming. If you've ever felt the world shifting faster than you can react, it's because Microsoft already decided where intelligence goes next, long before anyone understood the stakes. And the move that gave them this power didn't look dangerous until it began steering the entire digital world. This story doesn't begin with code, algorithms, or breakthroughs. It begins with a fear. The fear of missing the next era of power. Microsoft had watched Google dominate search, Apple dominate devices, and Amazon dominate cloud. They knew the pattern. Every new wave creates a new empire, and the one who hesitates becomes irrelevant. But instead of trying to build their own intelligence from scratch, Microsoft made a different calculation. Ownership would be faster, safer, and far more powerful. Because when you own the engine that everyone else depends on, you don't need to win the race. You set the finish line. And that's exactly what their investment in OpenAI was. Not a partnership, not a collaboration, but a silent takeover of the future's most valuable resource, intelligence. And the first signs of this takeover appeared long before anybody realized what Microsoft was actually buying. Microsoft understood one thing long before the world caught up. Every technological empire collapses the moment it stops owning the future. So they studied the pattern. Google guarded search, Apple controlled devices, Amazon mastered cloud. But AI was the doorway to something bigger, the power to think, decide, and predict before humans even act. And that's when Microsoft realized the truth. Building AI from scratch would take too long. The world was moving too fast. A wrong step would trap them in another decade of playing catch-up. So instead, they looked for the one engine capable of redefining intelligence itself. Not a product, not a feature, a mind. And that mind was already forming inside OpenAI. A private lab, a small team, a mission that sounded idealistic from the outside. But inside, it was building the most valuable form of power humanity had ever seen. And Microsoft saw what others didn't. OpenAI didn't need money. OpenAI needed scale. Supercomputers, cloud, hardware, global distribution. Exactly the things only Microsoft controlled. It wasn't luck. It wasn't timing. It was a perfect fit that created a new kind of power, mutual dependence, that only Microsoft could benefit from. And the deeper you look, the more you realize Microsoft wasn't just supporting OpenAI. They were quietly wiring it into their empire. But here's the part almost no one sees. Dependence always flows upward. And in this case, it flowed directly to Microsoft. OpenAI needed compute. OpenAI needed cloud. OpenAI needed the infrastructure to train intelligence at a scale the world had never attempted. And there was only one company capable of providing that horsepower on day one: Microsoft Azure. So the relationship shifted quietly, not through contracts, not through announcements, but through invisible reliance. Every model, every training run, every improvement in GPT flowed through servers Microsoft owned, operated, and controlled. And you can feel the weight of that because it mirrors something in your own life. That moment when you realize someone else holds the resources you depend on. It changes the power dynamic instantly. Microsoft didn't need to tell OpenAI what to build. They didn't need to interfere. They didn't need to micromanage. Ownership works differently at this level. When the entire foundation of an AI system runs on your infrastructure, you don't control the model. You control the oxygen it breathes. And that's why this wasn't a partnership. It was a strategic design, a long-game move that gave Microsoft influence over the future without ever touching the code. But the true turning point, the moment Microsoft went from partner to power, came with one decision that shocked the entire industry. The moment everything changed wasn't loud. It wasn't public. It didn't even look dramatic. It was one decision: Microsoft giving OpenAI access to a level of compute power no one else on Earth could match. That single move rewired the entire industry overnight, because OpenAI could now train models at a scale that made everyone else look slow, outdated, and underfunded. Google felt it, Meta felt it, Amazon felt it, and every research lab in the world suddenly realized the future of intelligence wasn't going to be built by whoever had the best ideas, but by whoever had the biggest engine. And Microsoft had just become that engine. This was the turning point. OpenAI's breakthroughs became Microsoft's breakthroughs. OpenAI's momentum became Microsoft's leverage. OpenAI's discoveries started running through Microsoft's global infrastructure, like electricity through a grid. And here's where the psychology gets real. You think companies rise because of innovation, but that's not the full story. They rise because they control the conditions that innovation depends on. Microsoft didn't buy OpenAI. They bought the environment in which OpenAI could exist. That's why every success OpenAI had, GPT-3, GPT-4, ChatGPT, DALL-E, all traveled through Microsoft's ecosystem, like tributaries feeding a single river. And with each milestone, the world's perception shifted. OpenAI was brilliant, but Microsoft was inevitable. Because when one company becomes the backbone of the future, you don't compete with them. You orbit around them. This was no longer partnership. It was power. Power earned not by invention, but by position. And once Microsoft secured that position, they made a move that proved they weren't supporting the future. They were taking ownership of it. Here's the lesson buried beneath all the headlines and drama. The future belongs to whoever controls the systems everyone else depends on. Microsoft didn't win by being the smartest. They won by building leverage. The kind of leverage that turns innovation into dependence. And this mirrors something in your own life. You feel overwhelmed when everything depends on someone else's system. Their rules, their timing, their decisions. That's the fear Microsoft escaped. They refused to let the next era of power sit in someone else's hands. So what does that teach you? Ownership isn't about owning everything. It's about owning the right foundation, the piece others can't move without. For Microsoft, that foundation was global compute. For you, it might be a skill you control, a network you build, a system you understand better than anyone else. Because power shifts silently. It doesn't shout. It doesn't announce itself. It appears the moment someone realizes the world can't move without them. That's why Microsoft's story isn't about AI. It's about leverage and the way quiet decisions create loud outcomes. And if this is what Microsoft learned from the past, you're about to see how they plan to shape your future. Today, you're already feeling the effects of Microsoft's takeover, even if you don't realize it. Every major AI tool you touch, every workplace system shifting toward automation, Every company racing to integrate intelligence runs through the infrastructure Microsoft controls. This isn't just a business move anymore. It's a global rewiring of power. Because the next era won't be ruled by search engines, devices, or social networks. It'll be ruled by whoever guides the intelligence behind them. And Microsoft isn't reacting to that future. They're shaping it. Silently, confidently, and with a level of leverage no competitor can match. So the real question isn't what is Microsoft doing? It's far more personal. How will you position yourself in a world where intelligence is controlled, not discovered? Because the final shift, the one happening right now, will reach into every decision you make. If you've stayed this long, you already sense the pattern. Empires don't rise because they move fast. They rise because they understand the systems that everyone else ignores. That's what RINH Wealth shows you. Not just the headlines, but the hidden rules shaping your world, your money, and your future. So if this episode opened something for you, if it made the future feel clearer, not scarier, then stay with us. Subscribe, because every new episode reveals the next rule they don't want you to see. And the next empire we decode may be the one controlling your tomorrow.